have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
And welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast Behind the Grind with Eric, Moody. Eric, we just finished talking about some offseason winners and losers here. Now we are going to talk about how to champion a great career in the fantasy and NFL media industry. And I mean, there's not many people with the kind of a resume that you have going here. We talked about this earlier on the show. We talked about ESPN, PFN, The Athletc, 4for4, RotoViz, Fantasy Pros. I can go on and on and on because there are so many other sites that you've contributed to here in your career. And I think we're going to have a little bit of fun here, Major. We always do when we go behind the grind, get a little candid here with our guests, catch them a little bit off guard every now and then. But the first thing we always need to know as we head into this show. Hey, I just rhymed, by the way.
Good job.
I'm like the original Dr. Seuss here. Now,
Canadian Eminem.
The Canadian Eminem.
That would be Justin Bieber, right? I don't know. That would be Drake. You're the Canadian Drake. Drake, whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to edit that out right there. But now we're getting ready to come out to the ring here. Say you're a wrestler, a WWE superstar, or you're coming in to close a game in the bottom of the ninth. And you get the choice of that music to get the fans into it. What is that song that is going to introduce Eric and Moody to the show?
That's an easy question. It's going to be AC/DC's Thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck.
And now we got to do the follow-up there. Can you sing us some of that?
I probably wouldn't be able to sing any of AC/DC's Thunderstruck, but I will pass it back to you. I'll be happy to sing something else. I'll throw something out there. How about Billy Idol, like Eyes Without a Face? I'll sing a verse from that. How about that?
Hey, you know what? Beggars can't be choosers, and we'll take whatever we can get over here.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm a Billy Idol guy, so I've done karaoke for his stuff before. So you know the song Eyes Without a Face, just like I'm all out of hope. One more bad break, and I might fall. Remember that song?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to clip that piece of audio, and I'm going to play it every night when I go to bed because that was some pretty good soulful Billy Idol.
He had
there,
like a little, he had a soothing voice there. Like his voice got deeper, though. Good job.
You know what, Major? I think we can run this off here and have like bedtime stories with Moody going on here. A little bit of little something help
hey, Eric,
the soul.
Just a little caveat here too. Like you're the first person to ever really take us up on that singing part. So kudos to you. Usually people kind of decline that, but let's get into a little bit about you.
Well, wait, Major. Follow up on that. Remember.
Go ahead.
What is that guilty pleasure song that's on your playlist right now? You got a little Lady Gaga there, maybe a little Britney. What's that one song that probably shouldn't be on my playlist, but you know what? I still like it.
That's a tough question. I was thinking that song by Vitamin C, which is going to be like a really deep cut. The song "Money" by Vitamin C. You remember?
I don't even know that.
Vitamin C, a pop artist, only came out with a handful of albums, but she was the one that sang that graduation song. It was back in the late '90s.
She had
she had a song that was on that album. Exactly, you got it. The song "Money" by Vitamin C. That's one that's kind of like on a random playlist. You know what? I was like, you know what? That song's kind of catchy. I actually like that more than her most popular song. So there you go.
That is a name I have not heard in forever.
I know, kind of age yourself a little bit there, buddy.
Full of surprises.
So did
You're
if
talking about
did
I'm 21.
times two, you know what I'm saying? No. Let's see. So get back on track a little bit here. So as a youth, like, did you play any sports at all? And if you did, like, how did sports kind of develop you?
Yeah, I played basketball like in grade school. So love the sport. That's kind of what started my love of basketball. So I played youth basketball. I played football in high school and football in college for a couple of years at Nicholls State. I'll say the biggest thing that sports taught me is really how to handle or how to be faced with adversity and how to handle adversity and kind of how you kind of move on and past that. Because I think that's important. You know, you're going to get kind of knocked out like in life, but it's just all about your mindset and how you handle it. So I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've had from playing sports. So it's not much that really phases me. So,
who were some of your favorite teams and players back then?
Oh man, back in the day, you know, the Atlanta Hawks, you know, when I was watching basketball, like in the '90s, big Dominique Wilkins fan, Michael Jordan, of course, you know, Magic Johnson, you know, with the Lakers, Showtime, even though when he was really in his prime, I was a little too young, like at that point. But you know, watching the highlights and everything there, you know, even tried to imitate like the hook shot. You know, they called me Magic Moody back in the day whenever I was playing basketball.
No one called you that, dude.
they did. That was my nickname.
Okay.
I obviously wasn't as good as Magic Johnson. Obviously, I was better at football than basketball. But yeah, and so yeah, there you go. Those are my teams.
Say, when did you get into football? Like, who were some of your players in football?
Yeah, I didn't really get into football until high school. That's when I first started playing. But I would say some of my guys, like I was a big, since I played offensive line, a really big Willie Roaf and Tony Baselli fan.
Wow.
I'm like, those guys were, I'm like Willie Roaf, you know, being a member of the Saints, and the Saints were like the pro team that were near us where I grew up in Alabama. So I was a big Willie Roaf and Tony Baselli. Those are my guys.
You don't hear those names too often.
No, you don't. Again, I'm full of surprises.
I'm about to say, this dude is a mystery man.
So let's talk about Nicholls State here a little bit. Let's talk about the Southland Conference Nicholls State Colonels, right? If I got that? Is that right?
You got it. You got it. There you go.
And again, Major, this is how stalking works. You picture the helmet right behind his back head. Go to Nicholls State. You got to figure things out that way. That's how successful stalking on the internet works out here, especially when you talk about these interviews. Now, we talk. I'm just curious here because you played football, basketball stuff. Was there anyone that you played with or was in that kind of area that may have gone on to bigger and better things, like when we talk about the NFL or NBA or something like that?
Yeah, I never had a chance to really play against anyone that ended up making it like to the league, you know, whether it was basketball or football. So I really wouldn't be able to answer that. But yeah, played against a lot of really good players. It's just
it's worth a shot. I always love up in Canada. We really don't have this big of an issue here because we haven't really had that influx down to the States and into the professional sports for the most part, outside of maybe hockey. Football, we're starting to see it a little bit now, but it's always fun to hear about guys who played basketball in high school and remember, like, they played against so-and-so and like absolutely dominated, because that's what it was back then. But one of my favorite things to see going on right now, and especially in the Twitter space, is when people have these fun Avengers draft mock-ups. They do these profiles. They do like a Marvel mock draft. So if you were doing a mock draft of sorts here, a 3-round one, what would your perfect fantasy startup be for Big Trouble in Little China?
You say China.
he's obviously been stalking me, as he mentioned on Twitter. So I wrote that tweet about. So who would be my top 3 from that movie?
Yeah, what would be your best, your prime lineup?
Well,
Gosh,
I'm trying to think.
Movies too. I can't remember any of the names though.
I'm trying to think of the names. Was it Wang?
Yeah, Wang was one of them.
Wang Chi, yeah.
So you got to have Wang. So Wang Chi. You got to have Egg Shan. I'm like, you got to have Egg Shan. So I got my combat covered. I've got, Egg Shan kind of doing some wizardry, magic, type stuff. Now I can also include the bad guys on here too, right?
Absolutely.
Like Lopan, like, and all those guys. I would think about
Who was the electricity guy? Who with the hat?
Lightning.
Oh
Yeah, they just had names. It was like thunder, lightning, and rain.
Thunder was jacked.
I used to like the lightning dude.
Yeah. So I was thinking thunder. You got to have thunder there. So we got Wang. We got our tank in thunder. I'm thinking of this like a role playing game, like an RPG. Right? And so I've got lightning. For I got thunder's my tank. You've got like my range person that's X-Shan. Then you got Wayne that could be like a jack of all trades. So sorry, Jack Burton. I'm like, you don't really have any skills I can use. So those are my three. There we
See,
go.
that would have been the default for anyone to be going to Jack Burton. Little Kurt Russell, the star of the show. Easy out there. I'm surprised no Wing Kong got into here either. He was a big deal back then. See, these are the hard-hitting questions we ask on Behind the Grind, right? That's a question you're not going to get anywhere else.
You're right. I probably
Needles was a good one too. I like Needles a little bit, but yeah. All right, let's go. Wait, who question is it on? I'm all off track right now. Is it on me? Yeah.
It's
so
back on you here.
Let's talk about a decision that changed the trajectory of your life.
Oh, that's a tough question. I would say one thing that immediately comes to mind is the decision to move to Dallas, Texas, because I did live in New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina came through, ended up losing everything. So electronics, pictures, clothes, you name it. All I had left was a gym bag. So the decision that changed everything for me was moving from New Orleans to Dallas, where I'm at now. So I've got roots here, obviously family, married, the whole nine. So that was a big change.
It had to be hard to recover from that. Are you fully recovered from that? I know people who still haven't fully recovered from Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, no, I would say I am. You just you kind of call, wherever you move to home and just kind of build up from there. So, and it was tough, I would say, for the first couple of months, just kind of getting used to everything, and then eating like MREs and all those things for like a month or so. But then once you kind of get back on your feet, it got easier each day. So.
Were you in the Mercedes-Benz Dome? Were you one of those people who had to go to was it called a Mercedes-Benz back then?
I don't know if they had I don't think they had the partnership at that time. I wasn't one that was at the Superdome. Buddy and we just ended up driving to Houston. Just kind of staying at some hotels in Houston, and then we were able to finally drive back to the city. But we unfortunately lived in an area that was one of the last to get pumped out, with water. And so it was actually the water levels were up to right under like a street sign where you've got the name of the street.
Wow.
It's here. Water was about right there. So it was that high.
That's
right
about,
one of the
that has to be about 8 feet, right? That's about 8.5 feet or something like that. That's pretty high.
Yeah, it was very high in that area. Very, very high.
Wow.
So when we talk about the journey, I mean, everyone's been on a journey, especially in this industry. And what are some of the biggest changes that you see now compared to when you first started?
Yeah, I would say the biggest change, I would just say really with the influx of content creators, because I would say the legalization of sports betting really created opportunities for, many companies, because they were doing sports betting and fantasy. And I think because of that, it's been a lot of opportunities and just really a lot of growth in the industry. So I would say that's really the biggest change, because I've been creating, content since 2015. And I would just say recently, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been some significant growth. And I think sports betting has a lot to do with that, because companies have found different ways, to make money and to be profitable, and really to meet the demand, they need additional content creators. That's good for the industry. It's good for content creators, good for everyone.
So then kind of on top of that, when did you start thinking, you know what? I want to get in on this. I want to get into this content creation. I want to get into writing because, I mean, you got that Fortune 500 type background there. But when it was like, okay, you know what? I want to get in on this.
Yeah, and I'll kind of weave that into the answer. So for me, I've been in the financial services industry for really the bulk of my career. I started in that space in 2005. Worked at various companies. making cold calls to people, trying to, get meetings, to, meet with them to learn about their financial situation. I've worked in banks, I've worked in call centers where people call in. So really the whole gamut. And so I began creating content. It was back in 2015, where I was thinking, I would like to do this full time. There's a lot of growth in the space right now, a lot of opportunity. It was just really up for me to kind of align with me making that transition with the right opportunity. And that's really where everything came to fruition with ESPN.
So you kind of touched on this here, how it started there, kind of helping people with their fantasy, taking questions, this and that. Now, I've also seen you through my rumblings through the timeline. You pose that AMA, ask me anything question from time to time. So I want to ask you, what's the one question you hope no one asks you?
I would say that there's not really a question that's off limits. I'll really answer. I'll answer anything. I don't mind. It just depends on how crazy the question would be, but I'm open to answering it. I may not answer it the way that the person wants, but I'll still answer it.
So here's a question for you. What's on your YouTube playlist right now?
What's on my YouTube playlist? I would say I like to listen to a lot of these. I can't remember the name of the channel, but I've got it like saved. It's basically music like playlists, like music that you can kind of chill out to, kind of focus, study. And so what I end up doing is I put that music on. I have these same headphones on. So I'll put the volume down really low for where I have to really focus on hearing the music. And I think in turn, it helps me focus on the tasks that I'm doing at that time. And so I'll really have playlists like that are playing like off and on throughout the day, just so it's not complete silence. But I think a lot of the type of music on those playlists are really made up of kind of like trip hop, for where it's got some bass, it's got a beat, but it's not overly
like lo-fi. Is it that stuff? I know
exactly
into the lo-fi. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's just like that.
Any crazy shows or podcasts or anything that pops up on that playlist as well?
No, not on those playlists. There's not really anything crazy, but I will throw this out there. Since you did kind of pose that question. Now, I really like at times, like if I want to listen to something different, like listening to some of those, what they be called, like horror like channels, like Mr. Nightmare, Mr. Ballin, those types of YouTube channels. I like listening to those type of true kind of story, type things. So I'll listen to those too from time to time.
Nice.
You know what? My wife listens to like those true murder stories and stuff, and quite frankly, it scares the crap out of me because more often than not, it's about like murdering the husband stuff that she's listening to. So,
oh boy,
she's just trying to formulate a plan. That's it.
I know,
oh man.
So I have to go through her playlist to see where she's going, so I know where the attack's coming from. What's something about you that people don't realize?
Yeah, I would say something that people don't realize, like initially, is that I. Like obviously people know me for, the fantasy sports side of things, NFL, NBA, WNBA, but I'm a really big music fan. So I've been, played bass guitar, for years. Like a lot of heavy metal, like a lot of hard rock that tends to shock people. So sometimes I'll tweet about that. A lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, I never knew that." So, I played in a lot of bands. I actually did backing vocals. That's why I wasn't like afraid to sing. So that'll connect the dot and close the loop on that. And I'm honored that of all the people you've had on the show, I'm the first one that had done that actually sings. So I was like, hey, didn't realize that, but there we go. So I would say that's something that people don't know about me that they're really like surprised at. So I would say something else just to kind of close the gap on that is, I really like analyzing and talking about, which I haven't really done this like on social media yet, but plan to. Got to figure out a way to weave it in. Is really like talking about different, streaming shows and movies and kind of breaking them down, giving analysis, reviews, that sort of thing. So that's something I really enjoy doing and would like to kind of weave that into some of the fantasy stuff I'm doing as well.
Well, we'll have to get together, do a little bit of a musical interlude because I play a mean cowbell. I got that down. So I have another hard-hitting question here right now. I know it's been a while, and we've all been able to kind of recover. Myself, Major, you can kind of relate to this as well. Have you ever been able to fill that void? Left behind from that Blockbuster card?
He has definitely been stalking the timeline, Major. So the story behind this. I just tweeted out like a picture of a Blockbuster card, and I was like, all right, and I was like, having one of these, your very own Blockbuster card, like you felt like a king. You could go and you could end up going to the video store and get whatever you want. You don't have parents there, kind of looking over you and all that kind of stuff. So Matt, I have been able to fill the void. And I think it's been filled with these different streaming services. I was probably one of the first adopters of Netflix, like back in the day, whenever they were only doing, DVDs, where they would just mail them to you.
Mail service, yeah,
I thought that was the greatest thing ever. So I immediately signed up for that. And whenever they offered streaming, I'm just like, how do I upgrade or change my membership? So I would say I was an early adopter of a lot of the streaming and everything there. And even I remember Redbox too, which isn't as popular as it was years ago. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the old Columbia House, 10 CDs for 10 cents type thing, right?
I remember that too. There we go.
My mom used to get so mad at me. I used to like steal her credit card and like order all that crap. But yeah, what are some of your more memorable podcasts or interviews?
With Joe at Fantasy Pros, where I was on the Fantasy Pro show. It was one where I think Yates, was out. I think his wife or his kiddo was sick, so he was out, and it was just Joe and I. We were going back and forth on a lot of different things. We even talked about I think on that we were talking about who's like the best like Batman. So I was campaigning for Ben Affleck, and he was kind of stating his points. That's one that comes to mind. I know Marcus Grant and I've had some pretty good shows too. So I'll say those are the ones that immediately entered my mind and are really good shows.
Yeah, was there any interviews that changed how you view someone, like heading into it? Like you went in thinking one way and they totally like flipped it on you, good or bad?
And they flipped it.
Yeah, like you went to an interview thinking like, oh, this person is hearing around the industry or something. This person is a bad guy or something, and you end up liking them, or vice versa.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's one for where it was. I wouldn't say it was necessarily like a podcast, but I would say it's one thing that I've tried to do. I would say for this year, it was something that was on my to-do list is just having just kind of some quick visits with people, as I would just call it, just with making friends. It could be like a Zoom meeting. It's just someone for where, I've been meaning to try to get to know, this person, whether it's like, like Dave Kluge, I know Dave is one. Troy King and I were finally able to kind of get together, and chat. Matt Harmon's like another one. So just some other people in the industry where I haven't had a chance to really do that with. Just having a chance to get to know them, not necessarily talk about football, just kind of share our stories and kind of our time in the industry and that sort of thing. Those visits have been very valuable, and that's what it's all about. It's really about just going out there, just making friends. So
if you were not going out there and making friends within the industry here, and fantasy sports media was kind of off the table, and so was that whole financial 500 type thing. What would you be doing right now?
If that wasn't on the table, okay, I would. So I'll give you a fun fact. So my first job out of school was with a beer, wine, and spirits distributor. That's a company I worked with when Hurricane Katrina happened in the New Orleans area. So we'll play multiverse here in an alternate timeline. So we'll say Variant Eric Moody would end up still being, with that company, because the plan would be to, you're taking me back here. What was funny is that, I was excited because I was on a really good sales route at that time for where I was like, I had some of like the top stores like in the area. I was fired up, having a chance to meet the managers, the buyers at these stores, trying to build some relationships. Like, you know what? Hey, this is going to be great. I did really well, kicked butt on my previous route, rose, it was a lot of growth there, sales increases, etc. And then a month in, Hurricane Katrina happened. And then 80% of my stores that I had were destroyed. And I was just like, okay. So I would say if I would have stayed, I probably would still have been in that industry. And it's a really fun industry. And I just I worked off premise for where I would sell to places for where they say off premises where they did not consume the product there. So not like a bar, not like a restaurant, that sort of thing. Those places where you go in to buy, like a liquor store or like a grocery store. But one beauty about Louisiana is that like you can buy whether it's spirits, wine, beer, 24 hours a day, anywhere that will sell it. So it's a great business to be in if you're in that city, let me tell you.
I'll tell you what, when I made my first trip down to the States, I was absolutely floored that you could buy alcohol at a gas station while gassing up your vehicle to go somewhere. Because that's you can't do that up here. So,
yeah,
I mean,
that's
so
great.
When we're talking about going back down to the sports media type thing, what has it taught you about yourself?
I would say the thing that it taught me is that I'm like, if you have like a plan and you're consistent and execute, like you can like you can make it happen. Because it's I'll kind of give you a little bit of insight for where I think if you have like I don't want to call it like a chip like on your shoulder, but it's like I think it's more like a mindset. Because my whole mindset like early on while I was contributing to all these places is that, you know what, it's that I want to make a name for myself in this space, in this business. I want to create the best type of content that's possible, but I also want to be really, really, consistent with it. And I want to show that, hey, I can still work, 40 plus hours a week at another job and still create as much content as you that are quote unquote doing it full time in the same quality. So that was always something that drove me.
I think someone call that the Mamba mentality.
Yeah, I think that's it. And so that was just something that I had always done. But and again, to your joke, Matt, that you had about all the different places I've written for us, for where I got to the point where I needed to consolidate where I was writing, because I didn't want to spread myself too thin. And so that's where I just isolated it down like to one or two places. But I would say that's something that kind of immediately came to mind. Just kind of thinking about that from your question is just just those different things. So you got to be consistent. You got to be dependable. You got to hit deadlines. It's just simple things. You got to be in it for the long haul. And then I would say the last thing is don't really be complacent either. You always have to be growing. Always have to be evolving. And I think that's important too. So.
Yeah, relationships are really important. Can you talk to us about some of the people who helped you along the way that you respect?
Yeah, it's been it's been a lot. I'm just thinking about like early on, I would say with the opportunity of Fantasy Football Locker Room, with the folks that ran the site, that was key. I'm also thinking about too with with Mike Patch, Fantasy Data, Gridiron Experts, kind of giving me that that opportunity. I remember emailing him like an article even before I started writing for Fantasy Football Locker Room. This is going to take you back. It's like 4 reasons why you should target Sean Green in your fantasy draft. So that's how long ago this was. I would say he was someone that was instrumental. But I would say, folks, these two individuals who really accelerated my, my development, like a RotoViz, was Sean Siegel. He was a zero RB himself, but also Matt Friedman, who's now with Fantasy Pros. Kind of a managing editor, of all the different content. I'm like, their feedback, like on articles and how to position things, was like invaluable. But it's a two-way street, because you got to be on the other end for where you're actually taking that feedback and implementing and taking like your ego like out of it. There's a lot of, there can be a lot of egos in the space, but you just have to be willing to say, okay, hey, this guy's been doing it for a while. This wasn't where it needed to be and what I did. Let me just take what he's saying or what she's saying and just add that into the process and rebuild. So I would say their insight was very, very valuable. But I would say someone else that I'll name, which you'll probably chuckle if he hears this, is like with Nando over at the Athletc.
His name's always coming up.
Nando!
Yeah, I'm just like
his name is always coming up.
Exactly. It's just like really just with the opportunity to to write for the Athletc and just to learn kind of behind the scenes on how things like work there, like with the content that they were creating. He was very transparent and communicated very well with, hey, here's a plan, here's what we need, just with us as a team. And so I think that's someone that was very, very valuable. And I was trying to think of another name, it kind of popped into my mind. I would say like with Matthew Berry too, just with him reaching out, and we mentioned earlier about Clubhouse, having an opportunity to do like a Clubhouse with for the fantasy life, with him, and Scott Fish was on there too. Just being able to kind of interact and meet him that way, because we've been obviously in the Twitter streets for a while, but not really having a chance to kind of connect, and so we're finally able to connect, by doing that. So that helped out a bunch as well. So those are some names that come to mind.
That's awesome. This is one of my favorite questions. You're a parent, right? You have kids?
I do.
All right. What are 4 things you should teach your son or daughter? Give us some advice here.
I'll say 4 things, and it's interesting. I'm gonna pull this up, because I did tweet this out on Twitter. Matt's been stalking me on Twitter, so he probably
he's a good producer, man. He gets the good info.
He probably knows.
See, everybody, we do our research. There is fact checking that goes into the show from time to time.
You do your research, but you don't check the facts.
Sometimes I make the facts up.
There you go.
Those are still facts, Major.
That sounds okay. I don't know if that's how it works, but all right.
it was really good. That's why I'm like scrolling. I'm like, where is it? Because I was like, because again, he was stalking me on Twitter, and I had that written down. So I was thinking about that. Gosh, give me a second. Because that was really good. I would like to share that. Okay, here we go. I would say shake hands firmly. Look people in the eye. A sports code is worth 1,000 words. If you don't play with passion, you won't win. And then, I think those are key things. Those are things that can help. Like any dad, or manners make men. Stay in touch with your parents. Simple things like that. Dream big and write it down. So those are big things.
I'm gonna call my daughter right now.
I really like that thread. If you haven't had a chance to go on there, go into Eric and Moody's Twitter feed right now, because it's not just 4 things. I mean, this thing took a life of its own, where everyone in the Twitterverse got in on this timeline. It was adding different things. So 4 things turned into 400 things before you knew it. It really blew up. If you go through it all, it's pretty cool to see not only this list, but the community kind of gravitate towards this as well. So I thought that was kind of a nice way to add to the show here, just to kind of throw that out there. Usually we kind of go, give us some advice for those trying to make it in the industry. But you know what? I thought, there's a lot of people that have families or think about starting a family. What are some, I mean, this is a cornerstone. We talk about cornerstone rankings when it comes to Dynasty. These are cornerstone teachings for your family, for your children, for your sons, for your daughters. Exactly. And with that all being said, it's been a great show. I mean, a lot of good information, a lot of advice, and not just talk about industry type advice, relationship advice, parenting advice, all kinds of things that we can, as a community, we can build on each and every day. I mean, if you take one thing from this, I mean, we have ways to be better people all the way through. I mean, everyone has someone who's helped them get to where they are. And then we pass that down to the next generation or the next people here right now. And just kind of listening to this whole story here. I mean, we had some fun, but I mean, we definitely touched on some pretty good things here as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we typically do, even with Major in the on the show. So lots of good things happen.
Unnecessary.
Oh, it's always necessary. Like Unnecessary Roughness, the greatest football movie of all time.
Yes, Necessary Roughness.
Shout out Fighting Armadillos.
Yes.
I don't know about all time, but yeah.
I think it's most underappreciated. So
the best last question. Like, I think we're just like riffing here, but what's your favorite football movie of all time? Like, I have to say mine is, was it The Program about the college football? I love that movie.
ESU. Timberwolves.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would say for me, it's Any Given Sunday. Because I felt like it was a really interesting take on the pro game, and they tried not to hold back. They showed the beauty of it, but they also showed kind of some of the ugly side with it too. Yeah. So and I thought the story was really intriguing. I just hate that we didn't get a sequel on that. With Pacino and Jamie Foxx's characters, going on or transitioning to the new expansion team. So I felt like that would have been great. I guess the film didn't do well enough at the box office to warrant a sequel, but I think it's a great film.
That should be a Netflix. I would really watch that as a series. That would be a good series.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. No, I agree with you there. Yeah, that would be great.
There we go. Some bonus coverage here. A little more football talk. Maybe we'll have to do a little bit of a fantasy football movie mock draft next time we have Eric on the show, assuming he wants to come back on the show after this one.
Absolutely. I'll come on.
Again, Eric, thanks again for jumping on with us tonight. Those who are just catching up here now, head over to fantasypoints.com. Enter that promo code Vipers22. There it is on the bottom of the screen right there. Fantasypoints.com, Vipers22. 10% off that subscription today. And yes, there is golf over there now too. So a little bit of everything going on over at Fantasy Points. You get the draft prospect guide right now. Some of the best draft minds out there collaborating on this magazine. I think it's one of the cheapest, best bang for your buck prospect guides out there today. So make sure to head over to fantasypoints.com. With that all being said, hey, this has been episode 122 of the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. For Eric, for Major, I'm Matt. And once I find the button,
he won't.
Oh, I got it. It's queued up right here. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.